All right, hey folks. So today I wanted to talk about the language and the power of the language. Through my serious observation of the world, I've concluded that there are a lot of ambiguities even in science itself. So when someone tells you that it's a scientifically proven fact, they don't necessarily know what it means. And I'll give a couple of examples. I'll keep them vague just so you can get the point, and we don't get into the technical nitty gritty of who said what and how that certain belief hurts some people and makes others happy and vice versa. Because that's where the power of the language comes into full force, because sometimes the words are used in order to prove certain things that are not quite factual. So, when there is a contradiction in science, it is easily disputed, and these disputes come from numbers. And oftentimes, these social sciences come into play where they are dominating the conversation, they're dominating the the narrative by changing the language. So when you introduce a definition into the language, you are actually taking control over that specific language. So if the definition is changed and it starts to envelop more than it actually means to real people, and this is the very important part. Uh, Not what the words mean by their definition, but what the words mean to the actual people. And when you start changing the meaning of the word to the actual people, you're actually starting to take control over the narrative. Therefore, I've witnessed that in psychology, sociology, anthropology, which none of these are actual sciences. Psychology might qualify at some point, but not. I don't feel it's there yet. From someone who is in natural sciences, obviously, more so than the social sciences, it's very easy for me to make this statement and still remain factual, because academia language that predates the modern day academia. This is what I'm going to say, because a lot of academics today, they lack sufficient knowledge and they are too subservient to the powers that be, that they became de facto priests uh, of the 21st century. Therefore, 21st century academia is monstrously transforming into a religion 2.0, where the science became an authority, de facto authority, on what is and what isn't real. And with this rise in the authority, the people who want to manipulate the reality are taking control and taking charge of who gets paid in the science. And therefore, those people that say things that go with the mainstream narrative are the ones that get paid, because the money is controlled by primarily by the government. And that's why we have such an astonishing collapse in in education in the United States. And I don't believe it's only in the United States. I think it transcends this country alone. I think that the quality of education is deteriorating because people stopped learning how to learn, and the rules of the discourse, the rules of the conversations and argumentations are becoming ad hominem attacks. Therefore, I almost feel as anytime we hear something is scientifically proven, I immediately want to know who proved it, who paid for this research. Because when you start to see the pattern of who enabled this research and for what purpose, then you can see the agenda. Where there is the agenda, there is the diminishment of truth, because agenda doesn't seek for the truth, it seeks the furtherment of its own cause. Therefore, anytime someone tells you that something is scientific, I don't think that you should actually believe it from the get go. First of all, you're not a scientist. Second of all, most probably the person that is confirming this to you or using it as a part of the argumentation isn't a scientist either. So therefore, he's not an expert on the topic. And whatever he obtained as a source of information is a second hand source of information, which technically means this person doesn't know what they're talking about and they're calling in for the authority to intervene and help them on the topics that they don't have knowledge of. And it's fine as long as the institutions that are providing the third intermediary knowledge, as I would express myself, uh, into the argumentation is valid. But more more often than not, the third party information is not correct. It is designed to influence the conversation and to push an agenda. And that comes in multiple fronts. That comes in multiple fronts. It comes from science where people are making statements and are proving things that are not certainly provable, and on the other hand, they're changing the language and educating people, well, indoctrinating people through the content. So if you're producing content and you're determining what is language and what isn't, and what the words mean and what words don't mean, you are creating an environment where people are getting easily controlled. In order to break through to this manipulation barrier, only thing that the person needs to do is to stop allowing someone to change the words. If a person starts to convince you of certain something and tells you, hey, but this is the definition, the only thing that you need to do is challenge that definition, especially if that definition is not factual or it has nothing to substantiate it, but a small community of people that are actually practicing that word. So I can give you some more of examples. Uh, Same words can mean different things in different professions, and I'll give this an example as an example from the communication field in marketing. So communication is kind of vague discipline that is designed to craft the message to the for the companies in order to sell better. Uh, and There is a substantial theory around communications in marketing, and people that practice communication are a very small niche. There's not a lot of people that do communication in the grand scheme of things. Communication is a niche product. It and it leads corporate people to believe that communication is crucial in increasing the sales. Therefore, the entire language that we use when we are applying communication to a certain field is designed to help us sell more. All right, that sounds reasonable, right? It sounds perfect. Uh, and then you come at the point where there is a person that's called, whose role in the agency, in a communication agency, is called strategic planning. Basically, if you strip down the the job description of strategic planner and you apply it in practice, you will see that strategic planner does nothing strategic to begin with and does no planning. He's an intermediary between the agency uh, and the creatives in the agency side and between the client. He does need to do the research, but so do most salespeople in the corporate environment. That doesn't differentiate the strategic planner from any other salesperson in corporate world. However, the way that they named this occupation, this specific job, has been manipulated in order to create the impression that the person that is a strategic planner is way more important than just a salesperson. The reason for this is because the word salesperson has a stigma. When you are a salesperson or sales representative, that's why everyone in the sales industry is suddenly becoming customer success representative or customer success assistant. So now we're making up these words in order to make our customers feel better about what we actually do. It, it's not necessarily telling the truth, it's taking control of the language in order to present certain things that we consider valuable. And now, because I'm coming from corporate environment, I see this uh, as a fraudulent explanation of what is the actual profession. When you're telling me that someone is a strategic planner, someone who comes outside of communication in marketing, I assume that this person is going to create a plan, a strategic plan on a very high level that will help me as a manager or a CEO to successfully run a business and get me closer to my goals. So do these things and you will get that. While a strategic planner is nothing but a salesperson pitching a deck to a client, telling him, here's the services that you need to buy from my agency in order to get where you want to get. So therefore, the strategy is not actually a strategy; it's a product that you need to buy. And then there's a conflict of interest. Every time you pay for a strategy, you expect that you will be able to do it on your own. But if you can't do it on your own, what you are doing is you are obtaining a product that you maybe necessarily didn't want to buy. So there is a conflict of interest between a strategic planner who works for an agency that is selling you services and the company itself. So therefore, the service of the agencies in general is very flawed for the corporate environment. And me personally being in this position, I often find myself in a position where I could say certain things to my clients uh, that aren't factual just in order to create more work for myself. But I try to steer away from that ethic because if we really go down to the bare bones, and if we start to observe our clients more in a sense of what we can do for them, I believe, now I digress from the topic way too far, but I believe that I could provide more value for them in the short term, and as they grow, their needs will grow. So this was an example of how manipulating the language we can make sure that certain things aren't as they appear to others. Because strategic planner as a term is very logically derived from the semantics of what it means in the corporate world. And when you give a title to your employee that is a strategic planner, and he is not a strategic planner, you're making a confusion. You are lying, you're misleading your customer into believing that he's obtaining value that he's not actually obtaining, which is a blatant lie. And that's just one example, and it's in corporate world. Uh, in the sad thing of today's reality is that science and scientific world and academia started to do these ambiguities of the language in order to get their point across to fit the narrative, the political narrative that has nothing to do even with the with science. And because we are in such an era, I feel we are witnessing the early phase of dark ages in academia. Now, I'm not going to say dark ages in general because there are a lot of intelligent people out there that are starting to rebel against the authority that doesn't enforce authority based on the facts, but more on the authority itself. And at that point, what is the difference between a scientific person that is manipulating the language from the priest that was controlling the masses in the Dark Ages? It, it's very loose landscape. We are, philosophically speaking, we are in the era where science is trying to become a de facto new religion, and a majority of the science today is somewhat based on scientism. It is actually becoming scientism, and that is a dangerous slope where media pushes these so-called experts into the field, laying the foundation for the indoctrination of everyone who's watching it through the introjection of the authority that is not authoritative based on the reality, but more so on the things that he's being paid to say. It happens a lot. Let's give the example of the studies. Case studies are a perfect example because when a tobacco industry creates a study on smoking, they will try to diminish the negative effects of the smoking, but they're also resorting to science. However, when you create a study where there there's a person paying you to say something that benefits them, you're paid to do certain things, so the entire origin of the hypothesis is coming from the agenda place. And then when you're doing certain things, there's something called self-fulfilling prophecy, and this self-fulfilling prophecy uh, means that you will find the answer that you're seeking. And oftentimes, and this translates also to the to the personal way of doing research. And also, this is where, when we are trying to prove our point, it's very easy for us to do a quick couple of Google searches and find the substantiating links where a person that shares your belief wrote a piece that streams your belief in the direction that you already came from. So if you ask a question to Google, the way you're asking the question will guide you towards the answer. Now, in this political season of 2016, we've also seen how Google was manipulating the results of the searches in order to appease to the political agenda of powers that be, which is not only uh, scary on the terms of like campaigning politically. It's scary in the realm of the world where how many of these searches are poisoned, not only for the sake of like elections, but how many of these searches are poisoned in the sense of defining the meaning behind what words are. And this is why I think it's one of the most powerful video clips I ever created. Is the fact when you know how search engines manipulate the language, you can understand what is the power of the search engines, because they're de facto keeping and storing our definitions so we don't have to remember them, and people started to create content based on simple Google searches, and that's why you can see this trend of people creating content that almost feels copy pasted. The reality is it's because it is. Because we all have the access to the same 10 search results that everyone else got. Like when you type in query, you will get pretty much what everyone else was getting. And therefore search engines have this immense control over the narrative and immense control over the way we're speaking and talking. And in order to break this barrier, we have to venture outside of the conventional. And that's why the language is extremely powerful way of of controlling large masses. And those people that control the language, they control the world. So every time you have a disagreement and someone can prove you wrong with sheer power of links that they can provide to you, just bear in mind that you might not be that crazy. You might not be a person that doesn't know what they're talking about. One thing that I've noticed so far is that common sense is way more accurate in getting you closer to the actual reality than science is in this day and age, or alleged science. And I'm not, I'm far here from bashing science just so I can prove the religion. Don't get me wrong. I'm very anti-religious as well. Uh, but the thing is, why I'm saying all of this is because I see this very strong parallel between the religious authority and the scientific authority. And both of them are designed to make you believe certain things that aren't necessarily true. And as the time goes by and as the powers that be are changing, the science will also change. Therefore, I just don't want you to forget that even the glorified science that is trying to be the be all end all answer to all your questions is man made. And that's something that we cannot forget.